Hi everyone, I'm Paul with ETSU Outreach, and this is Stories with Paul. I love a good story, and I've got a few of my favorites right here. Stories are a great way to be entertained, to be creative, and to ask good questions. Now, in this series, we're going to focus on listening to stories, asking good questions, and making some of our own stories later on. Some of the other videos on this channel have talked about good questions to ask during stories, and I'm going to challenge you to keep asking good questions. Maybe you can ask questions that are open-ended, like why or how. Or maybe you can ask some more specific questions, like how many or what color. So today is part 1, and I'm going to share just one of my favorite stories, the story of Rapunzel, with some beautiful illustrations by Paul Zielinski. Now, you've probably heard of this story before. There's a princess with a really long hair who lives in a tower. Maybe you've seen the movie Tangled, but when you think about it, there are lots of really good questions here. Why is her name Rapunzel? I don't know anyone named Rapunzel. And how did she get in that tower? Well, I've got the full story here. So let's go ahead and get started. Once upon a time, there was a man and a woman who had no children. But one year, the wife told her husband, "We're finally going to have a child." Now, the wife had to stay inside, and she liked to rest by a window that looked out into a garden. And this was owned by a sorceress, and there were high walls on every side. One day, the wife's eyes fixed on a bed of Rapunzel, an herb or a plant that looked so green and fresh that she just had to have some to eat. She told her husband she wanted some Rapunzel to eat, or she'd be miserable and sick. And here's a good question. What are some things you've wanted really bad? And is there a time that you've wanted something that wasn't yours? In the story, the husband was alarmed, and he set out to get her the plant. One night he snuck into the sorceress's garden over the walls and stole some of the greens. His wife made a salad and ate them all up. This only made her hungrier. So, what would you do if you were the husband in this story? Would you have snuck into the garden? The next night, the husband snuck back in, but this time he was caught by the sorceress. She was very angry and threatened the husband, but he told her that his wife would be sick unless she could have some Rapunzel. The sorceress considered this, and she said that the husband could take some from her garden, but in return, he would have to give the sorceress his child. Rather than see his wife terribly sick, the husband agreed. And when the child was born, the sorceress appeared, named the baby girl Rapunzel, and carried her away. Now, the sorceress was a caring mother, and Rapunzel grew to have long red hair. And when she turned 12, the sorceress led her into the forest to a tall tower. We will leave the rest of that for part 2, so it's to be continued for now. But here are some more questions. Can you tell me what happened after the wife started looking at the garden? Who caught the husband in the garden, and what happened next? Why did the husband try and steal some greens? And do you remember how old Rapunzel was when she went to live in the tower? Well, that's all for today. So we'll continue with this story and find out what happens next in part 2. In the meantime, check out some of the other amazing videos here on this site and put your suggestions for future stories in the comments below. I'll see you next time. Bye.